smiling if he had one of these credits, whether it be the Great Santini or Apocalypse Now, The Godfather, Tender Mercies, Lonesome Dove, Wake Your Soul, Get Low, Critics So Good, Almost Forgotten, Network, and my personal favorite, the film you're about to see later tonight, tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, the wonderful, the amazing Robert Duvall!
Non-genre, and one of my favorites that you didn't mention was when I played Joseph Stalin. What a character.
So it's a non-genre piece with adult characters, lots of listening, lots of things played in silence. How did this get made? I mean, it's a film that you rarely get to see nowadays. How did you get attached to this film, and how was it made?
It goes back with me, Zanuck goes back here, and Aaron Schneider, we met. And it's a wonderful premise, and it took 6 or 7 years to raise the money. I think it's easier to raise $100 million with a big name that's going to, is going to fail anyway, than to raise one for $10 million or less. It's very difficult to raise money, and then Aaron came to the farm, we talked, and then they did some rewrites, and then it was always a wonderful concept of a guy that sets up and goes to his own funeral. And then they brought Charlie Mitchell on, eventually, a true Southern storyteller from Alabama, who made it into this wonderful Southern tale, and we got the money and we went from there. It's like 25 days to shoot it. It's not much, but it was a wonderful experience working in Georgia with a wonderful cast, and just a terrific. It's my wife's favorite film in 15 years since The Apostle.
So much got to be played in silence and without speaking. Was it going in? Was there a lot of discussion with Aaron, and especially the last monologue?
No, we just kind of followed our instincts, and you can not much rehearsal. A rehearsal, take one can be rehearsal, and you do take 2, take 3, or whatever. But and then the final scene we did, one take on me and then one take on Sissy. That was it. Sometimes, they have a scene like that, they beat it up to death all day long, different shots, and you're worn out, but we all decided that, after one take it worked, so leave it. Why milk it when you don't have to?
So many actors are awarded for emoting lately and cluttering up performances. Your performance is always so strong, so honest, that I wonder, how did you stay so honest through all your performances? Throughout your career?
Well, I tried to, sometimes. Well, this is interesting. We vacationed when my wife was from in northern Argentina, and I sat that Christmas, 2 Christmases coming up, just on this small hotel looking out at the Andes Mountains, and that gave me a sense of peace, solitude, and privacy that was needed for the part. And the writing was so good once we started, I just let the writing take me, rather than having to think about this and that, and as ifs and substitutions, and about when your mother died or whatever, the writing was so beautifully on the mark that you just let the writing take you. You go with it without trying to violate it. And the beginning and the end of it all is talking and listening like we're doing right now. That's the beginning and the end of acting, I think.
And like you do a lot, there's a lot too much cutting, there's a lot of listening in this film.
Exactly.
You had wonderful actors with you, Bill Cobbs and Bill Murray. What was it like to work with?
Wonderful. My wife gets mad, but Bill Murray's a smart ass, but very talented. Wonderful to work with. In between scenes, he plays all kinds of strange and different types of music. He keeps us set, good spirits, and then Bill Cobb was wonderful, and Sissy, just terrific. And Lucas Black, I just worked with Lucas in another film. He's actually a scratch golfer. And we did a golf movie, but the kid's wonderful, from deep. He first started out at Sling Blade when he was little, and he has a thick Alabama accent that he works hard not to get rid of. Wonderful young actor, and Gerald McCraney, just a wonderful cast. And we only had 25 days to do it, and Everybody came well prepared, and sometimes, once again, you know, rather than, I did a movie once where you sit between takes for a half an hour. Here, you couldn't do that. We had 20, you had to move, and sometimes when you move fast, it's better. When you have to work in a concentrated and condensed way, it's better than if you have 100 days or whatever, you know. So sometimes, you know, the independent film system or films now is outside the system, I think. In the 70s, it was inside the system. You know, and I think that this film could have fit very well in the 70s. It would have fit well with those Coppola and Scorsese and those guys. Because it's a very unique. I don't think in 15 years they'll be doing a remake of this. Or a sequel.
You worked with
Very unique.
the amazing Horton Foote.
Oh, Horton Foote, oh, yeah. He was 93, 92. We saw all these plays in New York, 9 hours. We saw, my wife and I saw 7 hours and 2 hours the next day. It was just wonderful. And as Horton, you have to see Get Low. It's very much like you're writing. Now, the first day, we did it all in one take, but the first day, over me, onto the crowd, where I gave the final speech. On comes the mule with the coffin that I had built for when I really die. My wife, Luciana, was off camera. While I was saying those lines, she got a call saying that Horton Foote had just died. I mean, it was so spooky, it was strange. Like, it was full circle from To Kill a Mockingbird to that day, like he was there. So it was very, you know, so it was great working with Horton Foote. Maybe our greatest writer, well, certainly one of them. And a lot of people don't even know who he is. Young actors were stage actors. You say Horton Foote, they say, who's that? You know, he was great, you know. I mean, just because he's from Texas doesn't mean he can't be great.
Do you prefer, I know because once you did The Godfather, you then went on stage again and was doing American Buffalo, and you never neglected stage. Do you prefer stage, ideally?
No, I mean, you know, 8 times a week is tough. You know? The great Eleanor Duzza, the great Italian actress, they say when she came to this country, she refused to do it 8 times a week. It's just too much for her. It reminds me of a story that we all try to follow. Stark Young, the great critic, said that Eleanor Duzza, as opposed to Sarah Bernhardt, who declaimed more, when Eleanor Duzza came on stage in this one play, she saw her daughter, who she hadn't seen in years, and she blushed red. As opposed to the third act, when she picked a handkerchief up and her face got red. So, you know, that inner thing, moment to moment, talking and listening, that she was so great at, we try to emulate as modern day actors as well. But you know, it's what was the question?
What was my question?
About
stage.
Stage. Oh, stage. Yeah. Well, you know, if I had to go back on the theater, it'd be fine. It'd be okay. I mean, but I like to do movies because you go on location, you meet people. I mean, the film that's going to be shown later, tomorrow. It's a Horton Foote adaptation from a Faulkner short story. We did it in a small 90-seat theater in a garage off Broadway for 25 performances. And then we did, subsequently we did it as a movie a year later. So if I had to go back to the theater, I think I could. When I did American Buffalo, that was probably, that and Lonesome Dove were probably my 2 greatest, maybe, things I've done, performances maybe. Maybe this is pretty good.
All these characters, like the character in Tomorrow is so amazing. It's a character that exists, but no one has really ever been able to showcase that human, except for you in Tomorrow's meeting with Horton Foote's writing. It's such an amazing character. Do you know these characters that you're playing, or are you playing people that you've never even seen or met?
You mean when you try to do a character?
When you're playing this character, have you seen this character before, or is there something inside you you're creating?
Well, I mean, in southern Missouri, I saw a guy who had a cigarette that never touched the upper lip. It just was like that, and he talked like a cow. So I did that in the thing, you know. It's really like a more kind of not retarded, but different version. This guy could have been a lawyer, a doctor, or you know, he was a self proclaim, hermetic type of living. But playing tomorrow was very interesting, very different, very different. We did it on stage way back when they were doing the movie The Midnight Cowboy in New York. It was that long ago. That dates me.
Do you think it was beneficial to not be the huge success at age 20, but both you and Dustin Hoffman's people, you became a bigger success later? Do you think it's more beneficial to your career?
Well, I don't know. I mean, Kim Stanley once said, the great actress, between 25 and 40, there's some terrific actors, but after 40, something happens. So I always remember that. And when we did The Godfather, 1 and 2, and then 2, I got nice parts after that, but I always felt that I was a late bloomer, and everything happened later. And there's some terrific projects right now that I want to do if I can get the money. It's very difficult to raise money now, so I've always been kind of a late bloomer, I think. So, I'm ready to do whatever, I'm ready. Right here.
You were so memorable in your one scene as Boo Radley in To Kill a Mockingbird, and I'm wondering, did you kind of create a backstory for him so you could interpret it so well? And what do you think happened to Boo Radley in the future? Did he have a career? What do you think?
Oh, he just stayed behind that wall. I mean, this guy is just a little bit off, but this guy's not, I followed the book, and he was really like the Mockingbird, and he came at the end of the story, and I came at the end of the shoot, and everybody was really nice. They'd already done their parts. Gregory Peck was a wonderful gentleman. Horton Foote, was great to work with. So you just, once again, you go with what's there. At that point, I figured, I knew if I got goose pimples within the scene, I was on the right track. So that's what happened when I was doing that part, And it's great to work with Horton Foote, When we did a movie called Convicts, which was one of his favorites that a lot of people haven't seen, it's really interesting. He would sit under the camera writing something new, and he'd go, action, you want cut, you go back to the I said, Horton, could I try this little? He lets you do a little improvisation. Yeah, sure, Bobby, go ahead. And he was just very supportive of actors. And Convicts was directed by his first cousin, and Bruce Beresford, the Australian who directed Tender Mercies, liked that movie so much, Convicts, although he didn't direct it. He gave it to his friends as Christmas presents. Yeah.
I think Horton was great that way because he started out wanting to be an actor at some point, so he understood actors. He worked really well with them.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he respected actors, and very much so. He started as an actor, very definitely.
Right there.
Well, Robert, great actors create great characters, but you do something so much more. You create real people that we can relate to and identify with. And you never, all these actors do all these surface characteristics. You always take us into and see the real human inside. And that, I think, and when I told people I was coming here, everybody always says, oh, I like that actor. Everybody always says, oh, I love Robert Duvall. And that's because you show us real people. They're always sympathetic.
Well, I think that, when you create a character, you say, there's an old theory that you become the character. Well, you have to be careful that could be a trap. You become the character by turning yourself in a certain way. You turn yourself. You have to use yourself. You only have one psyche, one set of emotions. So it's you doing it in a certain way. Whether I talk with a lisp like this, or whether I talk that way, or a limp, or whatever, it's still got to be me doing it.
Right.
So you have to bring your sense of humanity and kind of focus that within what is called for in the imaginary set of circumstances.
That was going to be my question. I was going to ask, to what do you attribute this vast understanding you seem to have of human nature? You're so sensitive to human...
Well, you study human nature, and you just, you try not to design it too much. I don't try to intellectualize the performance, I let it take me. But still you can say, maybe I'll try this here. I don't like to, always like a director to say, so do this or this or this. If you're going to, I also look for the vulnerability in a character without without, necessarily saying it has to happen there. It could happen there, and maybe it'll happen there. Let's see if it happens there. I'm not going to say it has to happen there. So you let it find its own way. Even when I played Joseph Stalin, I had to find a certain sense of vulnerability. And I think the last scene with my daughter as Stalin, I just watched it the other day after 20 years, and I don't think I can do better in my acting than that final scene when I played Stalin. But you just follow your instincts, and sometimes you can trick yourself. You can trick yourself in a legitimate way. Like in some of this, like you say something and add something. Maybe you can't do that with Shakespeare, but you can add something that will kick something off. You know it might do it, but once again, you don't say it has to happen. A certain sense of vulnerability or something, a certain charge that you might get that helps. That is, you don't plan necessarily, but you plan maybe.
By the way, your wife is right. The apostle is the best.
Do what now?
The apostle is the greatest.
Come on, for Jesus.
That's when I fell in love with you, with the apostle.
It's funny because I saw that tag team preaching in churches, and some people didn't believe it happened, but it did. One guy preaching, the next guy preaching. I'm on the devil's hit list, but I got Jesus. Right there.
Thank you for being here this evening.
Well, thank you for coming.
Real honor. My favorite film of yours still remains Assassination Tango.
Ooh.
Thank you very much. Some people took this, it's like anything. Some people take to it, some people don't. I remember the first time opening out of The Godfather, that great film, where we all gathered. A well-known director came up with a cigar and said, I thought you boys were wonderful in this movie, you actors. He said, I don't know about the movie, he said. So there's always somebody, but I'm glad you did. I'm very proud of Assassination Tango, and my wife stole the movie. She stole the movie. Never acted before.
Would you consider that one of your sort of most, all your performances are so passionate, but there was something about your child, the relationship with the child and with your not yet wife and tango, and it brought so many elements. Is it one of your favorite films for having, you produced it, wrote it, everything, did you not?
If that was one of your favorite films.
Did you produced it, you wrote it, you conceptualized it, you were...
Is it one of his, you
Yeah.
wrote that film, so...
Yeah, I did, and when I try to direct, it's very difficult to find money and time in a project to direct. It has to be something I develop from the ground up. Within that movie, I put non-actors in there that from that world, and they know how to sit in a chair in a tango salon room, like an actor wouldn't necessarily know how to do. So I try to use the real people, knowing that they're natural actors and good actors. Because once a non-actor steps across a certain line, if he has no bad habits and is relaxed, he'll put the professional actor on notice. And I think that's what happened. I use that, in The Apostle, and in the Gypsy movie I did way back, and then one other film that I did called We're Not the Jet Set on a Rodeo Family. So whenever I directed her, I try to make it as an extension of myself as an actor, and let turning the process around and letting it come from them, from the subject, and try not to dictate what they should do. So, I appreciate it because I liked Assassination Tango very much, and it was great. I love working in Argentina. They're wonderful actors. And usually you work with a cameraman or somebody, you say, call me when you're ready. And sometimes you wait for hours. They say, okay, we set the scene, call me when you're ready. I reached for my tea, they were ready. The guy was so quick and good. And he lighted the Teatro Colón, one of the biggest theaters in the world for ballet and opera, but he also did movies. So, except the second day, they filmed the whole sequence in dance, slow motion, without telling me. I said, if this was the United States, you'd all be fired. Because you can't fire people, they have a system. But after that, they came around.
How important is is a tango in your life. I once heard you, it stuck with me forever. You said a man, an actor, has to have hobbies. Otherwise you slip into
Yeah, you
this.
gotta have hobbies, keeps you off the dope, as they say.
Did it make a great impact on your...
Yeah, no, it's a hobby, like the Texas two-step, they dance salsa in New York, the swing in different parts of the country, and it's a social dance mainly, not like all the fancy stuff you see. They have a world championship now, so I watched it a couple of times, and last year a Japanese guy won it, believe it or not. Usually the Argentines win everything because they're the best. So when we were down there last time, we had this Japanese guy show us a few steps. Oh, God. And when he won the championship, he started crying again. You know, the Japanese are like the Germans. They're very precise. And the Germans are very good at dancing the tango as well.
Yes, you.
I just thank you so much. All of your work is so inspiring, so beautiful. I was just wondering if you have any advice for us young actors.
Advice for young actors.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Get with a group. You have to get with a group. If you're an individual, you come into this world and you go out alone. But in the many lonely and alone hours in this world. But you have to take your individuality to a group, no matter where you are, and let that take you somewhere, where, and study or whatever, get with a director or do projects. But you have to go with some kind of group and go from there, whether it's theater or now they have music videos, but there's so many ways, and the door is open for so many young, and there's so many good young actors now. There really, really are. People say, "You really think so?" And I really do think so. Worldwide, Darín of Argentina, Bardem of Spain, wonderful guys in this country. African Americans. There's so many good ones now that never got a chance before. Spanish actors. So there's room for everybody. So join the club.
Right there.
Talking about the story, Forget Low, at the end he asked that question, whether he should have done it or not. And how important is that question in playing a character like this? Does he believe that it was important for him to follow his instincts and do what he did with this woman? And it seems to me it kind of parallels. To me, it's obvious that it parallels the life of an artist. Living by your instincts. Sometimes you get misunderstood doing what you need to do. Are these kinds of questions, these things pop in your mind when you play a character like this?
Yeah, but I think that, what he misunderstood was maybe himself. I think that he knows somewhere deep down he may have done something wrong. It's still a blur to him whether he could have saved her, whether he jumped out of the window prematurely, or did he rationalize that he was pushed, or was he really pushed? And yet he goes back to the thing that it's really his fault if he'd have never spoken to her. So there's a lot of guilt there, and a lot of turmoil there. Inside that's kind of hung there, that residue of sorrow and bitterness and guilt that kind of drives it at the end. So there's no real definitive answer about why he did it or why he didn't do it or what he should have done. He has a great burden of guilt.
What was it like working with Steve McQueen? Mine's been for a long time.
Steve McQueen?
Yeah, what was it like working Bullet with him?
Well, I only worked directly with him one time. I was in the back of the cab and he was driving. And then the second day, I had 5 weeks off in San Francisco, and a guy back in New York where I lived used to beat me in tennis, so I used to go down to the Chinese playground and practice the tennis, and went back and cleaned up on that guy. So I had a lot of free time, but I never really worked directly with Steve McQueen a lot. He was a very interesting actor, but he was there, and I had a small part, but I enjoyed working in San Francisco. But where are we now? In LA, right? I'm traveling so much that I prefer it down here to San Francisco.
Have you ever considered doing comedy, or why haven't you?
Comedy.
We're doing one now. I've done. I think true humor comes out of the behavior rather than somebody trying to be funny. So I've done things where there's humor, so it's within the character or the characterization. Some of the funniest guys I find in life are not necessarily professional comedians, although we were last night with Don Rickles, a funny guy. But, you know, the humor comes out of the situation or out of the behavioral process. So I've done stuff with humor, maybe I'll do some more.
And you're always fantastic on Howard Stern when I hear you.
Well, Howard Stern, we get along great, Howard. We get along great, Howard Stern. Because I keep him in check. Right there.
Hi, Mr. Duvall. My name's Francis. I was wondering, what's your favorite movie?
What's your favorite film?
What's your
Well,
favorite
one I've been or any film?
Andy.
Well, something you really enjoy. It doesn't have to be your number one bet.
I
If
guess
you don't
both.
have one, just one.
I liked the Swedish film way back, My Life as a Dog, and you know, films like that, certain European films and certain, you know, films from South America. I think Godfather 1 and 2 were monumentally directed. I was fortunate enough in the last part of the 20th century to be in the two biggest film phenomena in the United States, Godfather 1 and 2 and Lonesome Dove, which was my favorite part.
Yeah.
Although The Godfather was better directed than Lonesome Dove. But Lonesome Dove, the overall arc carried it. And one day I walked into the dressing room in Texas and said, "Boys, we're making a Godfather of Westerns," you know.
Right there.
Yeah, the stories surrounding Apocalypse Now are legendary. Can you talk about your experience on that film?
Yeah, there was some comedy in that. This is a better audience than last night. But anyway, you know, I was in the Philippines, you know, wherever you go, somebody recognizes you, we're in the middle of nowhere. And we had a great experience working on that film. And some guy comes up to me and says, "Mr. Hackman, I love all your performances. You're a great actor." I said, No, I'm Robert Duvall. "Oh, you're my favorite actor." So we were in the middle of nowhere like that in the Philippines. It was very interesting because I get a lot of respect for Coppola there and in Godfather 1, where they had a standby director in case he got fired. And, you know, he lived through that, and I gained a lot of respect. And in Apocalypse Now, it's just, he had the typhoon that destroyed sets, this and that, and it was quite an experience. And we stayed with people, you know, these women with machetes made us these hoochers out of bamboo for our dressing rooms, and we stayed with different people. It was really nice. It was very interesting, you know, and I only went for 3 weeks, then came back 6 months later to finish my part because it just went on and on. But it was interesting working with Coppola because it was really an interesting vision he had that I think he pretty much fulfilled. But you know, in the remake, or what do you call it, the Redux, he put scenes back in that he had cut out of mine that I didn't think he should have cut out. And naturally, I think it's better than once he put them back.
Right there.
I'm so impressed with your work. Thank you. I was wondering, I'm a student of Meisner, and my teacher talks a lot about you in our class. And I was wondering what you got working with Sanford Meisner and how that affected your work and if it still affects your work today.
Sanford Meisner.
Yeah, Sandy was a wonderful teacher, and he had a thing written over his desk: "There is no right or wrong, or truthful or untruthful." You know, which, you know, he always looked for the truth, and I think that's what you learn from him, especially talking and listening. He went into character work, but mainly the improvisation and the talking and listening was really good. And, you know, a lot of the women love to cry, you know, and all like that, see. So, whenever he had a cigarette, he said, "If crying means great acting, my Aunt Tilly could be another doozy." He was good. You know, it was a shortcut. Maybe I would have learned it anyway, but maybe it helped be a shortcut to be with him for a while, to learn those things, you know. Because, you know, he, Strasberg, and Stella Adler came out of the group theater. And he once said he was a little bit easier to please than Lee Strasberg, who was very difficult, very tough on, you know. All of those people, it wasn't necessarily a joyous experience, which I think acting should be in a class, whatever.
Right there.
Excuse me, Mr. Duvall. When it was announced that you might be working with Gilliam on the Don Quixote project, I know a lot of fans of yours and Gilliam's got really excited. Is that any closer to happening?
What's that?
The Don Quixote.
Yeah, well, you know, I just found out today. I haven't heard from him in a year, and I'm in town. And, you know, if he can't do it in Spain, maybe Mexico or Argentina, because it's very difficult to raise money now. You know, I really, really would like to play that part, Don Quixote. He'd seen me play a part of a small Cuban barber in a movie with Richard Harris, and he asked me if I would, and it's really pretty interesting. So I'm starting to ride horses again, because, Spanish horse, and, I really would love to do it. So tomorrow maybe we'll see, because it's very difficult to raise money in these times, I think, very difficult.
If any movie should be made, I believe it should be that.
One of the most powerful scenes I think I've ever seen in a film, and it certainly resonated with me over the last 3 decades, is the basketball scene in The Great Santini. I've always wondered, was any of that improvised? It has a sense of immediacy to it, or was it all scripted, especially...
Well, you mix. You scripted, but you also improvise, you let it wander within movie time in a legitimate way without making it too much of an indulgent thing. Improvisation can be good as long as it suits the scene itself, but that was pretty intense all day long. Well, not all day long, but filming that, it was pretty intense. Yeah, I enjoyed doing that.
Right there.
In Get Low, I have to say that your character is so memorable just because of your acting and the visual, his look. And I want to know, did you have a lot to do with the wardrobe, the beard? Was that all you?
Well, I would say it was all my idea, but the wardrobe lady's here today, so I can't say that. She was wonderful to work with, just the best. And the guy I usually have do my makeup was from Italy, but he wouldn't do it, so I got my new guy now. It was Kenny Diaz from Los Angeles. He made that great beard. I grew the best beard ever. It was just great. And so you work together as a group and you exchange ideas, and they, between Julia and Kenny, they came up with some nice things, And then you go from there. Let that feed you. Let all that feed you.
I have a picture of my great-grandfather with that exact beard chopping wood. So it's actually truthful.
Well, you knew your great-grandfather? Did you know him?
No, not my great. I didn't know, but we have a picture from a paper. It's the exact look. It's unbelievable. Right there.
I'm from the Deep South, and I am shocked by the film. It's my second time to see it, and it's one of my favorite films ever, seriously.
What was that?
The film, Get Low.
Get Low.
And so you so portrayed the Southern thing. It was like watching my relatives on film. Are you from the South, or how did you...
Well, where are you from?
Down in Louisiana, near the coast.
I didn't go for an accent. Sometimes I do go for an accent, but here I just let whatever seeped into me from my father's people in Virginia. I didn't try to go for an accent. But when they brought Charlie Mitchell on from Alabama, he changed almost some of the infrastructure and the detail, the fringe things, so it became a Southern tale. Very, very much a Southern tale, but universal at the same time. So I just let it feed me, and I didn't go for it, but just something from my family maybe, just something that come into me from my father and his brothers.
That was amazing, really.
We have time for maybe 2 more questions right there.
Yeah. Excellent job with Get Low, sir. Thank you very much. And have there been any parts in your career that you've turned down that you regret?
I turned down lead in Jaws. I don't necessarily regret that. And then I turned down one of the parts in Seven and also Shawshank Redemption. But Morgan Freeman was great in the part. So and we had the same age, and maybe they didn't talk me into it. But there are some parts, but there's some parts now, if we can get the money, the Hatfields and the McCoys, which is like American Shakespeare, but to get the money is very, very difficult. We're trying hard, to do, because there are a lot of good projects out there. A lot of good projects.
Time for one more question, all the way back.
Hi. Everybody has a Robert Duvall favorite movie. Mine's The Great Santini.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, listening to you speak, and I see a lot of young actors in here, have you ever considered or kicked around the idea of coaching? Because I'm just watching, it's not only on, I've never heard you live, and I've never seen you at a play, but I'm watching how you hold command over this entire audience. I'm wondering if you've ever thought of actually teaching.
He's asking if you would do acting, teaching, coaching.
Not really, no. About 2 weeks ago, in Texas, for our charity, donated a nice sum of money to come to our farm in Virginia And I gave him a 2 or 3 hour thing of what I thought would help him, you know, in his acting career. We improvised, and I think it turned out very well. And then I had him read a scene, and I read the part of Adolf Eichmann, another one of those wonderful guys I played. And, you know, at first, you know, he was okay, but then he was going for the result. I said, start from 0 and don't mind if you end with 0. You don't let the result, don't go for the result, let the process take you to the result. Just see what the moment is, talking and listening. And that's one of the few times I kind of taught somebody. This was a couple of weeks ago, and it worked out okay, but, you know, I don't necessarily think I want to do it for a living.
I think if you stick around and watch tomorrow, you'll learn a lot. Just stick around and watch that film. Well,
want to, it's such a great audience, I have to tell my favorite story. I wouldn't tell it to most people today, but it's such a great audience. I love Texas, and we were driving down, and we were going to go over to the Buffalo Gap, where there's a great steakhouse, the Perini Steak Ranch, where he was going to cook at 9/11 at the White House, and all that stuff handled. So he took his cowboys and cooked for the people at the Pentagon. It's just a great place, because usually when I finish a job, I never go back, but certain parts of Texas I really like. So my wife comes from a race car driving family in Argentina, so she always drives. So now, you should turn this way. No, we're going this way. So we're going way out of our way around. There's nobody on the highway. She must have been drawn 90, 95. Nobody. Here comes a state trooper. Pulls over. Madam, did you know how... I don't believe this, he said, lonesome dove. Follow me. Now we went all the way back to where we should have turned, and he called his wife. The wife came, and the kids came. They were not particularly provincial people, very together people. In the middle of nowhere, we talked and great, and pictures. And finally, when we went to leave, he said, no, this is the road. You should have gone down. So I made a joke. There was a double line. I said to him, now look, if I cross that double line, you're not going to give me a ticket, are you? And without losing a beat, his wife said, well, if he does, he won't be allowed in my bed tonight.